All right, good evening. We are live with the Kansas City Teacher Residency. My name is Vernon Birmingham. I am our talent manager for recruitment and placement. And I am joined this evening by Cohort 6 member Morgan Wiley. Morgan, how are you this evening?
I'm great. How are you?
I am doing well. Excited for our first Career Changers conversation of this year. Thank you for joining us. For those of you who are able to join in or catch us a little later, but we did have to change our scheduled time of 7 o'clock on a little bit of short notice a couple of days ago. However, we did decide to make this a prime time, 8:30, 9 o'clock event, one of those Barbara Walter type things here with Morgan. So thank you all for joining us who's able to jump in. But for those who are new to this, our Career Changers conversations are essentially set up in order to allow our residents, our alumni, to kind of share their experience of what it was or what it looked like for them to leave their professional career they were doing prior to teaching, and talk about the different steps along the way, some of their apprehensions, some of their highs, some of their lows. It's just be transparent in what it looks like to enter the teaching profession, specifically in the residency program and the residency model. So this is just that opportunity for our family to share their stories, as well as give insight to others who are considering making this change. So sit back. We do utilize Facebook Live here, so feel free to ask any questions in the chat, and we'll try to answer those as we go along. So Morgan, I guess we'll start off with just telling us a little bit, what cohort are you part in? What are you teaching? Where are you teaching? And we'll kind of get started there.
Yeah, Morgan, my name is Morgan Wiley. I'm part of Cohort 6, and I'm currently teaching a resident in 9th grade English language arts at Hogan Preparatory Academy High School. You want a little bit of background on like how I got here?
Sure. Yeah, we're going to get there, but
okay, perfect.
But let's do this first. Just share a little bit how it's going for you thus far in this first go around. And I'm going to ask that question because last year when I did Career Changers, everyone was in a virtual sense
right.
with Cohort 5. So with Cohort 6, we were able to start in the classroom at the beginning of the year. So let's talk a little bit about that experience and how started this process is going for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like I'm finally getting my footing a little bit. I'm feeling really good in the classroom. Like I've built relationships not only with my students but with the staff at Hogan, and I'm feeling really good and part of the community. It's everything and more than I imagined, and a lot of things that I could not have possibly fathomed it would be. But it's gone really well. We've been in the classroom. We have class all day on Mondays for KCTR as part of our program. So I'm in my master's classes on Mondays, and then I'm at Hogan all day from Tuesday to Friday. So in the classroom, doing everything my mentor teacher does all 4 days of the week. Our contract hours are 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. So it's a long day, but I love it because it gets me home to spend time with my family so it feels I can make appointments in the afternoon still and pick my kids up from school and spend time with them as well. But it's been great.
Excellent. Glad to hear that, and glad the first few months have gone well for you. So let's talk a little bit about what was it? What did you do prior to entering the teaching profession?
Yeah. So as long as I can remember, I wanted to be an attorney. That was the goal. So I graduated high school, went to college at Southern Methodist University, with the idea. I majored in sociology, religious studies, and had a human rights minor, excuse me, as well. And all of those were great, and I loved learning them, but it was with the journey in mind that I would be going to law school following my undergraduate career. So I graduated a semester early, moved back to Kansas City because I knew this is where I wanted to be. Got enrolled and got into University of Missouri Kansas City School of Law and started law school, and it was just not what I thought it was going to be. It was a great learning experience, and I just decided pretty early on that I did not want to be an attorney. But I ended up graduating from law school, have my law degree, never sat for the bar, but kind of, for lack of a better word, floundered for a little bit, because what I thought I wanted to do for so many years ended up not being what I wanted to do at all. So ended up doing a couple of different things, worked for my family's credit card processing company for a bit. And then finally landed in animal welfare, working for Kansas City Pet Project, where I did a bunch of different things for almost just shy of 5 years, before I went on maternity leave after having my second child, and realized that it was not a career that was conducive to the family work-life balance that I was needing, and had always imagined myself going into education. But I thought it would be, after I have this long legal career, it would be something that I explored. And I, just not knowing anything about education, or having been in really any exposure to the industry aside from being a part of it, going through my K through 12 education, I did not know the challenges that presented themselves for getting your certification. You can have all of the education in the world, but if you don't have the right qualifications or certifications, you are not, it's tough to get into the teaching industry, for lack of a better word. So when I was on maternity leave with my second daughter, I was on Nonprofit Connect, and I saw KCTR, and I was like, oh, that's a really cool program. And then life just kind of happened. So that was probably back in 2019 that I saw that. And I was like, that's a really cool program. I should look into that. And then I didn't. And then a year later, I was still having the same feelings. Like, I really want to find something that I'm passionate about, that leaves me feeling fulfilled, that I can figure out a work-life balance, and be present for all of the weekend games with my children, after school things with my children, and just feel like I'm still making a huge difference. So a year later, I went back on Nonprofit Connect, and KCTR had another cohort that they were looking to fill. And I applied. So here I am.
Excellent. And we are glad and happy to have you on board. So, when you're speaking of the idea of wanting to do something in order, something you're just kind of passionate about, something that allows you to feel like you're contributing to society in some way, shape, or form. Why teaching? How did teaching become that avenue for you?
So I think about when I was younger, and just the difference that having an educator who I felt was rooting for me, who was passionate about me succeeding. I always think back as to how impactful that's been on my life. And I now, as part of being an educator, or on my route to being an educator and being in education, there are teachers who I realize that I remember for making an impact. And then there are teachers whose names I remember what we did in their class, but I don't necessarily remember their names. And I want to be that teacher that makes a difference in a child's life. And when they're like, oh, who's a great teacher you had? I want them to be like Miss Wiley 100%. And I want desperately to be that person who's empowering my students.
That's pretty cool. So you were talking about in two different cycles, seeing KCTR, Nonprofit Connect, which means one that are at or working a little bit. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm sure maybe, I'm not don't want to assume, but you're probably also exploring other avenues to maybe potentially becoming certified. So what was your process in determining what was the best route for you in becoming certified?
Right. So I just had my 34th birthday about 2 weeks ago. I had gone to law school after graduation, and I was not super interested in going back to school and getting a full-fledged education specific degree. That wasn't immediately where my head went as to how I can be a part of this. So I looked into what I would need in order to be a teacher. I looked in for that kind of information for both Kansas and Missouri. And I figured out that I needed to pass a test, and I needed, that was like the one thing I found out. But then I realized that that was only going to get me so far. So I realized that doing it on my own was not the best route for me. Like, I needed someone holding, not necessarily holding my hand the entire way, but someone at least like gently guiding me through the process. So I looked briefly into Teach for America. And for whatever reason, I figured I didn't feel like that was necessarily the best fit for me. But looking at KCTR, I love that it was a program that got boots on the ground, teaching experience pretty much from day one. With the exception, we have Summer Institute beforehand, which really preps you for getting your feet in the water, in like ready to go. But aside from that, like, I've been in the classroom 4 days a week since August. And KCTR really offered a unique way to provide coaching, because that was a big thing for me too, is I wanted someone telling me, you're on the right track, you're on the wrong track, here's how you can get to where you need to be the educator that you want to be. And KCTR's coaching, as well as getting teaching experience basically from the start, and then the coaching, not just for my residency year, but for the years beyond, was a huge selling point for me for KCTR.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. And again, thank you for all who might be joining in this evening to our first Career Changers conversation of, I guess we will call this our Cohort 7 cycle per se, but we have Morgan Wiley from Cohort 6 joining us this evening to talk about her experience as a career changer, which we define as individuals who are in some other professional career or whatnot and transitioning into the teaching profession. And she's just joined us. Morgan is a resident this year at Hogan Prep Academy in ninth grade ELA. So with that said, and the next question I guess I want to bring up, and not really I guess it's a question, but we decided to make this plunge into the teaching profession. What made you finally say, you know what, let's do it, let's go for it?
I think the fact that I was looking for something more than what I was doing at the moment. And I really am passionate about nonprofit work and getting, and just service generally. So Nonprofit Connect is where I've found, where if I was looking for any different change in career, Nonprofit Connect was where I was going to look. And there would be times where I'd be looking seriously. There would be times where I'd just be kind of perusing. And I think seeing KCTR the previous year and being like, oh, that was cool. And then seeing it again after assuming it was kind of a one and done job posting, it really felt like kismet to me. Like, it really felt like this is your sign. Like, you didn't do it when you originally thought to do it, but here's another opportunity for you to do it. And just thinking about the year, it was a pretty hard year for me after having my second daughter, just because the juggling of work and home life became harder. And animal welfare is a hard industry, as is teaching, where there's a lot of burnout, and I was just burnt out and I needed something different. And seeing the opportunity again for KCTR when I was seriously looking, it just felt like a sign.
So, as a current resident, and, for those who are tuning in, sometimes we host individuals who are currently residents going through that first year, and we sometimes host individuals who are been doing this 3 or 4 years. But knowing you, Morgan, we're in October, so about 2 months, I guess, 2 months we've been in the classroom. What did you expect going in? And not only what did you expect, but how did those expectations align with reality in these first 2 months?
So I think for me, one of the things that I had a little bit of trepidation about was, I know KCTR has this idea about how I'm going to be into the classroom and I'm going to be teaching the class, but I'm not the teacher of record. So I think the thing that gave me the biggest pause going in was, has my school site bought in? That was what I was most nervous about, I think, was I had met with our principal, who I had such a great conversation with him. I had such a great conversation with my mentor teacher, and I knew that they had been bought in, but I wasn't able to kind of, I just wasn't sure if the entire school site had bought in. And so on the first day, they're like, we got to get you a desk. And I was like, I get a desk? And so they put a desk in there with my mentor teacher's desk. And so I was like, okay, this is a good sign. And since then, since day one, I've been at all of our professional developments, all of the teacher things, and every single person at the school has treated me not like any different than I would have been as a staff person. So I was worried a little bit about making sure everyone had bought in, and they 100% have, and they're so supportive. There is not a single staff member or teacher who I can think of at Hogan who is not offered to help me in any way that they possibly can. If I have questions, no one's made me feel silly for asking them. And that goes the same for the KCTR staff. I had no experience in education. We have some people in the cohort who came to KCTR after doing city year or literacy lab and having some idea, or working in schools as paras. And I had none of that. So they have, there's not been a single person who's made me feel silly for asking a question, whether that be a fellow resident, a KCTR staff member, or a faculty member at Hogan. So just the complete buy-in of the entirety of the community has been amazing.
That's great to hear. So you just mentioned the mentor teacher and the KCTR coaches. So let's land there for a second and talk about how important they've been to you in this process thus far through the first couple of months.
Yeah. So my mentor teacher is, we hit it off from, and so she kind of described it to me as the KCTR process is speed dating a little bit. So you kind of go through a process where you first meet with the principal, and then you kind of see if that's a good fit. And if that's a good fit, or the head of the school, and if that's a good fit, you meet with the mentor teacher. And if that's a good fit, you kind of see if it's the best fit. So it's a little bit of like a speed dating. And my mentor teacher and I, from like our first conversation, I feel like we hit it off. And she is wonderful in so many different ways, but I feel like one of her biggest strengths has been, or watching her build relationships with students has been like huge for me. Just seeing her get on their level and figure out what works to build connections with them. So my mentor teacher has helped me create lesson plans, and also given me kind of just watching her has been so incredibly impactful. And I feel like I picked up a lot from just watching her, but then my coach has seen me she's been observing class every week since the beginning of the school year, from the very first week until she was here at our school site today. And she saw me observing, and she really gave me that push to be, you know what to do. You've seen your mentor teacher do it. And today I did. And so feeling empowered, and then giving me feedback that is empowering yet constructive, I think has been really helpful. Like, you're doing this great, but it would be even better if you did this. And then knowing that she's going to be back next week to see me implement those changes and give me feedback that can help me continue to improve throughout the process has been great.
That is cool. So, yeah, thank you, Morgan. And for those just tuning in, this is Career Changers Conversation with Kansas City Teacher Residency. I'm Vernon, Birmingham, serve as a talent manager that works with our recruitment and placement, and had the pleasure of working with Morgan last year as she joined Cohort 6 of the residency program. We're just having a conversation this evening about the transition from a different career into the teaching profession. She's been sharing some wonderful insight about what that process looked like for her. It's just to encourage other individuals who are thinking about making this plunge into this very valuable and needed profession. So again, if you're joining us, feel free to drop any questions in the chat. I'm trying to monitor that as much as I can. But so Morgan, let's talk about that previous profession a little bit. What from your previous profession has helped you in your role as a teacher?
Yeah. So I think obviously being a law school graduate, there's aspects of law school that have been super helpful. As I think the biggest one would be able to look at the overall situation and condense it. So look at a complex situation and deduce what is happening in it concisely in a way that is digestible to my students, I think has been really helpful as far as like looking at reading standards and lesson plans or explaining complicated text to them. I think that's been super helpful. But I think the thing that's been most impactful from my previous career would be working in the admissions department and in the Lost and Found at Kansas City Pet Project, because it really gave me insight into, I guess, just not making assumptions based on just not making assumptions. Like, essentially, if someone had lost their dog, that doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad pet owner. It means that their dog's scared of storms and ran out the door, and they had, it doesn't mean that. It's just essentially putting the resources where they need to be in order to empower people and make them good pet owners. So it's much like in the same vein, I think not going instantly to judgment when there's a late assignment turned in, and seeing what I need to do as an educator to help my students get their assignment in, what's holding them back, what can I do to empower them and make them feel supported in accomplishing what they need to for my class, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does. Thank you for sharing that. So, here at KCTR, we're very open and transparent about when individuals join our residency program. It's not easy. You're spending 4 days as you lift it up in the classroom. You're going through your master's program. You're going through seminar and methods on Wednesday evening. So there's a lot of things going on. So I always like to ask this question because I think it's important to lift up. But what type of support systems did you have in place as you made this transition or made the decision to make this transition outside of your other career into teaching?
So I know that there are people in the cohort who do not have the village that I do. And my heart, like, they're such amazing people. And I don't know how they do it, but I am very blessed to have a substantial amount of support from my family and my husband's family. My husband knew I was looking for other jobs, and I was like, I think I want to be a teacher. And he's like, okay, let's help. What can we do to make you a teacher? And he has been so supportive throughout the entire process. But truly, I think, and I'm going to have to pull up the Facebook Live so my mother can see that I'm acknowledging everything she does for me. But my parents and my in-laws watch my children. I have an almost 5-year-old and an almost 2-year-old, and I would not be able to do it without them. But there are people who do. So it's amazing to me that they do that. But essentially, my husband is an attorney. And so being able to communication has been crucial for us as a family and me being able to do this. So he desperately wants to go to this Chiefs game the weekend before the 11th. And I was like, okay, but I have my mini takeover the week of the 11th. So I'm really going to want to spend that Sunday preparing. So making sure we had someone lined up who could potentially watch our kids for us if he wanted to go to the game and I needed to work on it. Just looking ahead and planning ahead and communicating with my support system what I need from them in order to be successful has been instrumental in making me able to do what I'm doing.
Excellent. Thank you. So, sometimes when we talk about support systems, I hear over the last year, often some individuals will talk about the current cohort that they're participating in. So let's talk a little bit about Cohort 6 as a whole. Something I'm very excited about, since that was the first group that I worked with, bringing in 47 unique, intelligent, diverse individuals into this program. So let's talk a little bit about how that's been for you going through this process, not individually, but with a group of now 40 plus individuals from many different backgrounds. Talk a little bit about the cohort.
I can't say enough good things about my cohort, truly. It's the most amazing group of people. Sorry, I need to plug in this computer. Thank you. There's my support system helping me get the computer plugged in. But Cohort 6 is truly the most amazing group of individuals I've ever encountered in my entire life. There are so many people who I have gotten the opportunity to know, who bring so much to the table, who are going to change this world through the impact they have as educators. And just people who have all different experiences and who are bringing so many different things to the table. And there is not a single person in the cohort who I could not, we have a group message with all of us. If I message anyone in that group message saying, hey, I need help, like I'm struggling with this, is there someone who could help talk me through the best practices to get from point A to point B on this assignment? Like, what does it look like? Let's talk it about. There's no one who would not. And then just speaking a little bit about the cohort, I have to give a shout out to my methods class. I love my methods class, and it's great because we have the entire cohort, which is resident teachers from pre-K up to 9th grade. And at the end of that, we have a lot of elementary school teachers, and then it kind of gets more sparse the older it gets, as I'm sure it does, the younger it gets. So I have a methods class with just 8 of us, and it meets every Wednesday night, and it's middle school ELA. And truly, they have been they're the best. And they're just much like Cohort 6. There's not a single person in the cohort who would not help if they were asked. We rely on each other so much for support, just, whether it's help talking through a situation, if someone's having a hard week, raising them up. It's such a special group. And having briefly spoken to a couple people from Cohort 5, I think it's similar for them. I'm biased, of course. I think Cohort 6 is the best. I think my methods class is the best, but I think KCTR has done something really special in what they are. I don't know how you guys pick the groups that you do, but I mean, I think this is the second time I've used the word kismet, but I feel like it's just, we're all here and we're all meant to be together and we're all meant to be learning together. And it's just been really great.
That's awesome. Thank you, Morgan, for sharing that. And we're coming up on 9 o'clock. And even though I did say I wanted to give you the prime time slot this evening, I'm also understand that you have work tomorrow as well. So we're gonna finish with two questions here. And again, thank you for joining in. Those who are watching live, and some of you will watch this later within our YouTube channel. But we're with Morgan Wiley, Cohort 6 member, 9th grade ELA teacher at Hogan Prep Academy. So, Morgan, why was it important for you to enter the education profession?
So I feel like I change my answer to this a little bit every day, because I'm finding new reasons that I'm in it. But I think as far as entering in it, I again, just touching back on, like, I have those teachers who just changed the game for me growing up. And I think the idea of being that person for someone, the person who believes in them, the person who supports a student who doesn't have support elsewhere, who empowers them to go on and do great things with their life, is so huge. It's huge, for lack of a better word. And that, what career is more rewarding than teaching? And I just, like I said, every day I'm finding a new reason to be doing what I'm doing. I think about ELA, and I think about how it, succeeding and being proficient in English language arts is crucial to just functioning in society. And I think, it's a great field to be, a great specialty, I guess, for teaching to be in. And the kids are so great. They're so great. And I go home every day, and, there are days where I'm like, whew, that was a day. But I go home and go to bed feeling just good about the work that I've done. And I think that in and of itself is, like, what more could you want?
That's awesome, Morgan. And we are definitely happy to have you as a member of KCTR and Cohort 6, and excited to watch your future in years to come as an educator in the Kansas City community. So the final question I'm going to ask you as we close up here is, what piece of advice would you give to someone who's thinking about leaving their career to teach?
One, I think, think about what's holding you back, and think about why it's holding you back, and think about what I think for me, when I was thinking about it, what gave me the final push, I go, what's going to happen? What's the worst that can happen if I go into teaching and I don't like it? I don't like it, but take the jump, I think, is my biggest advice. Take the jump, knowing that you will have people who will catch you if you stumble in KCTR and at your school site and in your residency. Take the jump knowing that you'll be entering a career that is unbelievably rewarding. And take the jump knowing that you're going to make a huge difference in the lives of a bunch of kids.
That is an awesome way to end this, Morgan. Morgan, thank you for, again, taking time out of your busy late evening to join us here at the Kansas City Teacher Residency, our Career Changers conversation. a lot of pressure for everyone else who's coming after you, since this is the first one of the year, because you delivered as I expected that you would. But
thank you.
Again, thank you for spending time with us this evening. And thank you all who took time to join us here on Facebook Live this evening. If you joined late or whatnot, feel free to catch this on our YouTube channel within the coming days. And also feel free to join us next Thursday, where we will get back to a 7:00 p.m. Career Changers, and we'll be joined by Cohort 6 member, one of your colleagues, Nathan McCoy, who's going to join us, a retired military veteran who's going to share his experience leaving a military career, entering the teaching profession. So we're excited for that one as well. Morgan, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you all for joining us out there in social media space. And we will see you next week.